I now call the December 18th, 2012 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Councilman Smith lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Lars Baker.
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman Eric Heiser.
Here.
Councilwoman Diana Mahoney. Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Mayor Wartness.
I am here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Mahoney from the meeting tonight.
Your Honor, I'd move to excuse Councilwoman Mahoney from tonight's meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I now declare that a quorum is present this evening. We will have the approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda at this time.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve the agenda. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, at this time we'll have communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium, identify yourself for the record, and if you could speak into the microphone so those at home can hear you, that will be good. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this time? Okay. Agenda item number 8, the Riverton Police Department Citizens.
Skipped 7 in Canada. Skip 7.
Oh, I jumped right over in Canada. Oh my gosh.
Gotta have that.
Yeah, we can't have that. There's money involved there. Agenda item number 7, in Canada presentation. It's my understanding that Mr. Schmidt is here this evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, on behalf of Encana, I have a $12,000 donation for your NGV pilot program that you're starting up. So I'm proud to present this check to you, and I hope it works for you. It's working very well for us. We have probably half of our fleet converted, and you know, as we need to order new trucks in, we're continuing to convert. So it's a very worthwhile program.
We appreciate the support of Encana, and we're very supportive of where that's all headed. I think it just makes sense for the state of Wyoming, and we certainly want to participate, and this will help us get the first pilot vehicle in the fleet so that we can compare numbers and whatnot, and be able to come back to the citizens with our recommendations. So thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you.
That helps.
Picture. Better get the mayor. Better get the mayor to take the picture.
Come down?
Yeah, do that. Do it that way.
I think it'd be better if I'd come down.
They can touch it up, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I apologize for that hiccup there. The next item on the agenda is our Chief of Police has a report for the Citizens Award.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Taylor Murphy. Taylor is the son of Captain Eric Murphy in our police department, and we've all had the pleasure of just enjoying watching Taylor grow up, and for the last 3 years I've really been able to watch him grow from a child into a young man, and we have some special recognition for him this evening. He saved another young man's life this summer, and we want to take a minute to recognize him for that effort. So I have 2 awards for him, really. One is from the Red Cross, who's recognizing him, and the other is a police chief's special recognition citation, and I'll just read that to you. During the Labor Day weekend 2012, Taylor was enjoying the holiday at Boysen Reservoir with several members of his family, as well as some other friends. Some children were fishing while others played in the shallow edges of the reservoir. A 6-year-old boy who had been in the water accidentally stepped off of an underground ledge and fell into deeper water. He was unable to swim and began drowning. With no hesitation, Taylor immediately jumped into the water and swam to the younger child. Although unable to keep his own head above the water, Taylor simply pushed the 6-year-old above him and started swimming toward shore. Adults saw the 2 boys struggling and were able to help them get to shore and out of the water. The 6-year-old was in serious trouble, and Taylor's selfless actions, at personal risk to his own safety, probably saved a life. Taylor is to be commended for his bravery and his willingness to help others.
Wow. Congratulations, Taylor. That is marvelous. That is just really inspirational. Does Grandma want to say anything? Okay. Thank you very much for sharing him with us. That's
Genetic.
That's neat.
It's genetic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty special. Okay, the next one is catering permit approval process discussion. City Administrator's report.
Yes, Your Honor. On November 20th, 2012, Councilmember Christensen presented the future agenda item to the council to see if there was support in changing the catering permit approval from the council to administration. The council voted to move this forward and have staff look at this option. On December 4th, staff presented a draft ordinance to the council. Our city attorney that was here for executive session ended up staying through the meeting and stated his opinion on catering permits. He wasn't prepared to give a firm opinion because he didn't have the statute in front of him. On December 5th, he issued his opinion, which is attached to your staff report. In it, it talks about statutes indicate that only the governing body may issue catering permits, and if not so issued, the action is void. Over the past week or two, I've been contacting other cities that currently approve catering permits through administration, and I try to ask them what the rationale is, either from their attorney or from staff's perspective, as to how they comply with state statute. The first one I heard from was Cody, and they said that this similar thing came up when they talked about changing it, but they contacted Tom Montoya from the Liquor Division, which regulates the catering permits, and their interpretation of the code was that the council could delegate that authority to staff, and so they changed that over at the time. Recently, even after the packet, I talked to Carter up in Gillette, and their opinion from their attorney is that they don't feel like they're even delegating the authority, because they write the ordinance, they state what the exact parameters are for approving these permits, and that there's avenues to appeal them to the council, or if staff doesn't feel comfortable, that they can take them to council. So their interpretation that they're not even delegating the authority. because they've given all the stipulations of how they need to approve them. Staff had contacted 11 cities in Wyoming: Casper, Cody, Cheyenne, Gillette, Green River, Jackson, Lander, Rawlins, Rock Springs, and Sheridan, and only 3 approved them through the council. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice. You guys have to take your own, decide how you interpret our city attorney's advice compared to what other communities are doing. Staff has discussed this, and the only logical explanation that we can give is that through the governing body, it has the license and authority. That doesn't mean that they can't delegate that power to staff. There's a lot of things in state statute that says it's the powers of the mayor or the council that has been delegated to staff, and so, you know, that could be interpreted the same way with catering permits. So it attaches a proposed draft ordinance of items to be deleted or added in the current Riverton Municipal Code. If administration approves the catering permits, it would make the process more efficient for the applicant. That's the main point of trying to move this forward, and I believe it was the intention of Councilmember Christensen, is to try to make it more efficient for the people that are actually applying for these catering permits. From the staff's perspective, it doesn't really do much for us. We still have to do the same processes we've done before. Also, as a part of the ordinance, there's clauses in there to deal with these unusual circumstances, as I talked about before. If there's things that the staff feels that we don't have the authority or we can't make that judgment call, we can move that up to the council level, and the council can then approve that. So that would obviously lengthen the time for someone to get a catering permit approved. But I don't honestly see a lot of those unusual circumstances occurred. I mean, since I've been here in a year and a half, we haven't really had any major ones that have even been changed. I think the only one I can remember was when we had one that was in a residential neighborhood and we changed the hours from 2 a.m. to 1 a.m. or midnight because we didn't feel like it was appropriate in a residential zone. Also, in response to Councilmember Smith about the council commitment to monitoring the catering permits for a year, the effective date of the draft ordinance was added to be February 21st, because that's when the year would be up on the catering permits. And so, I guess the recommendation is for council to give staff, if you want to move forward and actually do this draft ordinance and have the first reading and public hearing at our next regular council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Appreciate it. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the catering permits.
Your Honor, I'd move to have the catering permits approved administratively.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the process and have the staff handle the administrative handling of the catering permits. Is there discussion?
So, Your Honor, what this motion means is that we're authorizing the staff to develop the proper language with the idea in mind that we're going to move in that direction. Is that correct?
Your Honor, yeah. What we're looking for, I mean, we would have a first reading and a draft ordinance, or I mean that ordinance at the next council meeting for.
It would have to go through 3 readings.
For 3 readings, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Smith.
I guess, you know, originally when this came up, I really didn't have any issues with it. I guess right now I think there's some confusion over who has the authority to say what's legal and what's not legal, and so that's where I'm a little apprehensive right now. You know, the letter in page 7 in our packet, our legal counsel doesn't think it's legal. Gillette's does. I mean, how many lawyers do we get together to get a consensus? And, you know, does the state liquor commission override the legislature who created the statute? Or, you know, I think in previous discussion with Councilman Heiser, maybe, you know, the AG
of the state, or somebody's got to give us some clarity on which way we can go with this. But right now, our legal representation doesn't think it's a good idea, and our chief of police doesn't think it's a good idea at this point. So I don't know how we can proceed without some more clarity. Okay. Otherwise, we're just kind of speculating on, well, this city thinks it's right and they can do it, and this city doesn't, and we really don't have any kind of firm place to stand other than our own legal counsel for our city that we pay to help us keep under the law. So,
Your Honor.
Yes.
Well, maybe somebody else wants to talk. I've already talked.
Go ahead.
Councilman Baker.
I share Councilman Smith's concerns, but I'm comfortable with the motion in that what it will do is create something for us to actually look at, so that we can evaluate whether or not the delegation to staff is appropriate, whether or not it's got adequate safeguards built into it, that it's limiting, so that staff can't simply issue permits willy-nilly, but instead they have to meet certain standards and specifications. And so I guess that's what I'm interested in seeing, is how that works out. And in the next 6 weeks, we should have ample time to get some kind of a response from the Attorney General's office or something, if we feel like we would like to have something hard copy from them, or from the Liquor Commission, one way or the other, before we move ahead.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Councilman
my concerns are rather simple. Personally, I would like to have the less regulations, but it surprises me to find that the police chief sees a purpose to have those aired in public here, and I value his opinion. I don't always side with him. I've been known to vote against the poor police chief, but I think that that's we're paying his salary, and his opinion counts in my book. And then the same thing with the attorney. If we're going to, I would suggest, instead of going forward, that we wait until we get clarification. The attorney's opinion was rather pointed, I thought. There wasn't a lot of gray ground in Solar's letter in response to us. It wasn't that he said, oh, yeah, this is my opinion. I think it was fairly well written, and he opposed that. So with the police chief and with the city attorney both thinking it would be a good idea to keep them on this table, I don't see that it takes up a lot of our time, and I think that it would be a good thing to probably keep at this location. Although I am in favor of cutting regulations. I don't see any outstanding. My only problem, I guess, is whose parameters do we set up? And we haven't had any discussions on that. And so when you talk about the council going out willy-nilly, I don't think they have any other choice but to approve whatever comes to them, unless we give them some direct guidelines as to timing and location and some thoughtful considerations. And so not to just put the staff on the spot when somebody comes in with a catering permit and says, hey, we want this activity, and for them to have to make the decisions of, I don't think that that's the timing that the city council is thinking of. So I do think if we're going to go to that point, we at least have to have some kind of discussion of what the parameters are for the city to be able to say to somebody that's asking for a catering permit, that's past the limits that we've been approved by the city council. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Christensen.
Just to clarify, a few questions here. There already are parameters. They're on the back of the license. You'll see a list of them, and they've been on every permit we've looked at. So we do have the parameters in place, and I think they were already in that ordinance we drew up. So I think we have that covered. I'm worried that we don't know what those parameters are, but they are there, and that's what the staff would view. I guess I want to go back just a little bit. The bottom line for this, for me, is administratively. I want that done. I want to speed up the process. Exactly. I want people to come in, be able to get a permit when there's a large group out there drinking. Plain and simple. Again, in our ordinances, we can drink on private property. We can't stop people from doing that. Alcohol is still legal. I'm not advocating drinking. I just think there's a way to somehow have some responsibility in that activity. I think we're all for that. I think the guys that do the catering and the gals that do the catering, that's their job. They want to have a responsible event. They have the insurance policy that covers those events. If we don't do that, and there's obviously every week there's people that want to have impromptu or whatever, they forgot to apply for that permit. They're every week, and I have personal knowledge of that every week. There's people that want permits, and that's only one place. I'm sure there's others. I just think it's a good way to advocate for responsible drinking versus bring your own bottle. That's all it is. It's not going to stop people from drinking, but it will keep people responsible, or I would hope it's going to keep people a little bit more responsible. I've only had one catered event in my whole life and probably could never afford another one. They did a great job. They were responsible. They followed the parameters on the back of the license. I got to say, it was wonderful. I think it allows, and it'll keeps people safer, plain and simple. The citizens out there driving. We know they're drinking. Let's give them a permit. Let's give them a chance to be responsible. I just think it does keep people safer. And it allows the few businessmen that do it a chance to do their business. It's the next logical step. Since we increased the permits a year ago, let's let them do their job. I just think that that's what we should do. The only complaints I've seen, there was one letter after the fact. We've only limited or denied one malt beverage permit that had nothing to do with the caterers, and that was regarding money. I mean, that was non-payment of a previous thing. We've added catering permits to the agenda. That was done July, if my research, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did add one to the agenda in July. We've never turned one down. I feel the staff is very capable of doing that. Again, I spoke with the Liquor Commission, and I was referred from the Attorney General's office to the Liquor Commission to find out what the law is. They were okay with it. I did not write down that state statute that he quoted, but I think it's the same one that Rick Sellers quoted. He gave me a lengthy explanation, but the thing was, yes, all the cities and most of the cities in Wyoming do it. They feel, their attorneys feel it's safe. Let's see. I just think it's in the city's best interest to do it because of that logical next step. One of the things I did want to bring up, and I respect Mr. Solar's opinion, but I had some questions about the opinion. He quoted some different things. Therefore, the plain reading of the statute indicates that only governing bodies may issue catering permits, and if not so issued, the action's void. Well, in my world, it's void anyways. They're still having the party. They're still out there drinking. Why not let these guys do their job? We're not going to stop the party by not issuing the permit. I just think that there's some control if that catering permit is issued. These guys can't serve any alcohol or sell any alcohol if they don't have that permit. So it's back to BYOB. In one of the other paragraphs, and correct me if I'm wrong, his opinions are backed up by McClellan on municipal corporations. It must be the Bible of lawyers, I've heard, when I looked this all up. That states, section 12.126, page 524, indicates that a governing body cannot delegate a power involving the exercise of judgment and discretion. Now that's wide open for everything. That is, it's not just about catering permits. So here's my question. If we're going to do it for one department or one permit, let's do it for all of them. Because administratively, we issue building permits, gun permits, special use permits, home occupation permits, variances. If we're going to go by this, I think we need to go one way or the other, all the way across the board. They're all done administratively. They don't come to the council. Just something to think about. If we're going to do it one way, let's do it another, or for everything. In this other paragraph here, it just reiterates about permits. We should not be delegating that authority to anybody. I don't know, and those are pretty important permits too, along with the catering permit. That's just something I looked at that I thought that doesn't make sense. Maybe a lot of folks out there don't tend to drink alcohol. Maybe they don't go to these events. But I just want these events covered. I want the people that are sponsoring the events, the people that are paying for the events, the people that are attending, and the people that are in their homes to feel safer. I know I did. I know it was a great feeling to know that somebody was out there watching out for me, watching out for my guests, and they got us all loaded up and went home. You know, it was nice. I'm just positive that the staff of the city of Riverton has every bit of knowledge that the council does in issuing them. Plain and simple, I just think it's the most logical next step to keep people safe and allow businessmen and people that want to have these events covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilman Heiser.
Statute actually seems to be a bit contradictory, and that's why I brought up the AG's opinion. I guess that would give me a little bit more comfort. But it does talk about what a licensing authority is, which is either us, and then the contradictory part, it also says that it's the commission, which is the State Liquor Commission. Because I thought it was very curious that the AG's office would refer something back to the Liquor Commission when really they're not tasked with issuing the license. Well, if you read it in statute, it certainly looks like either it's contradictory or it's an either-or type of thing. So I'd like a little clarification on that. I think I'm all right with moving forward, so long as we're going to get an opinion from the AG, because I think that'll obviously be helpful to not only us but the rest of the cities in the state. And the only other thing I guess that I would not want to see is, well, I guess there's two parts of this that concern me. One is the malt beverage permit. I don't think I want those going through staff. The main reason is, if you use the argument that a catering permit is by a professional organization that holds a liquor license, a malt beverage permit can be obtained by anyone. That, to me, doesn't pass the smell test. We've had groups in here before that had no business getting malt beverage permits for events that were either held before and we were burned on that, or just fly-by-nighters. So if we move forward, that's I think one area I would be uncomfortable with putting on to staff. And I guess the second part would be, we had lengthy discussion on extending the catering permits, and there was a lot of public comment. And I'm with Councilman Smith in that the whole year-long thing, and maybe we check up on it in a year. I'm just not so sure I want to jump right from the year review to, yeah, everything was good, and now we're going to make it even one step easier for you to obtain liquor within the city. So those are the things that I'm wrestling with. Like I said, I'm not really sure that I have a problem with it going forward, because we do have the 3 readings to get through. But first and foremost, I guess I'd like to see what the AG's thought on the statutes are, because there certainly seems to be some contradictory language in a couple of the provisions. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. I guess for myself personally, I kind of agree with Councilman Guard that when our chief of police, is not supportive of it, and our city attorney is, I have a hard time going that direction. I think also that our community has such a horrendous problem with alcohol that, for us to, what can only be seen as a watering down of the process, I just have a real problem with that. When you read stats that suggest that about 85% of the PD activity involves alcohol to one degree or another, to make it easier for someone to get a catering permit than what we have now, I just really have a hard time going there. I know how people work, and I know how systems work, and if we have a system in place where people have to come before the council and know that they're going to be reviewed, which is the highest governing body in the city, then I think they're going to try to follow as much as possible all of the requirements of the process. And if we say, no, you don't have to come to us, we can handle it administratively, then it's going to get a little, I think, a little sloppier on that end. And if we have difficulty getting people to come in now, I think they're going to be pushing the edges down at that next lower level. And some of the permits that we get through are filled out so cursorily, you can't read the names on them. It really, I think the process needs to be tightened up a little bit with a little better information. But I just feel comfortable in my own mind that if we do go administratively, that's going to become worse, not better. And I don't disagree at all with Councilman Christensen that this is the next logical step. But the next logical step in what? And I think the way that we've taken the lid off of the catering permits now from something that was fairly restrictive to making it now fairly open, I don't disagree that this is the next logical step, but it's certainly not a step that I can support. So, and I've had this discussion in the past with anyone that wants to talk about it, so I'm not coming up with anything new here. I think the oversight of the council is very important when it comes to an issue like this, and I don't think that it takes that much of our time, and I would just hate to see us water it down. But at any rate, that's my 2 cents worth on the subject. So is there any rebuttal?
I have one more question, Your Honor.
Councilman Christensen.
Everybody keeps talking about this monitoring. What are we monitoring? I don't know. I've never heard. I think that's what the staff does every day. They make sure that those parameters on the back are done. I don't know. Maybe I'm guessing that's what we're monitoring. But I don't know. Anybody can tell me.
You're
I-
I think it, we had a permit come before us, and I think Councilman Mahoney was the one that said, what are we doing letting this party go to 2 a.m? And that was walked back. And I think that's, when you say the parameters are already in place, I think, and I can only liken it to building permits, which you reference. They are not black and white. Everyone has a different opinion of how that code is to be enforced and written and viewed. And so there comes a point in place where you have to have an opinion, and somebody has to state that opinion. And if we leave that to the staff would at that point have to say, well, wait a second, we have to walk this back to 12 instead of 2, and then that permit would need to come back through to the council, I would assume, if the caterer's insisting on 2 a.m, and because his thought would be that the staff doesn't have permission not to grant that, and so that permit would have to come back to us. And so my thought, and boy, I hate putting regulations on stuff, because this is just exactly what happens to it, is everybody pushes those edges. And the mayor's exactly right. Less than a year ago, we tried and walked out on the edge with the catering people. They had 6 a year, and we greatly increased that. And yet, I guess what I'm seeing is that's not help enough, and they need more. And where Steve says it doesn't really matter to staff, it's not going to do anything for staff or help staff out. We got the same amount of work. I think when it comes to this table, it gets publicized and people understand where those parties are. And I guess my greatest negative is I don't see the virtue in, like you do, in a catering permit as being something that's a crime stopper. And the crime stopper in the room is the chief, and he isn't really enthused with lightening up the rules. And so I would have to say, in my opinion, that it is a lightening of the load and a waxing down of the requirements. And I would have to say I was one of those that really pushed for the caterers to have more room. But you know, this is the camel in the tent. Pretty soon they've got the tent, and we don't. And so instead of being thankful for the opportunity to create more work, I see just a requirement to get out of the way, and they'll do whatever they choose to do. So I'm not opposed to either side of that. I can see virtue on both. But I do see the fact that this is a watering down, and it is a lightening of the load, and every time we push something to staff, staff has to struggle with it. There's going to be a question on either side of that. I don't care how well the parameters are written on the back of the permit, there's always going to be somebody pushing the edges. And so I think it would be a really good idea to get the AG's opinion and see how that fits Riverton, Wyoming. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Is there anyone else? Councilman Christensen.
I don't know how to convince people that the catering permit. I agree. The chief is the hammer that's got to come down. But and maybe you don't attend these events. I don't attend them all. But the whole point is, if there's a party, and all I can liken it to is like when we were kids. If there's a party out there and you go to that party, if the police know where that party is, people are going to be more responsible. Plain and simple. Versus, and please know that, let me just go back just a hair. The caterers are not the ones that came to me about this. Please know, they do a wonderful job. They are, I don't want them bashed at all about this. This is not who came to me about it. It was some people that wanted a party, And there was actually 10 of them that wanted a party and in a large event. But watering down, I don't see how it's watering down, because the events are still going on. They're still going on. It's just helpful for the city to issue those permits, so there's somebody that we know that somebody's following some parameters. And we change those parameters, the time limits. They're pretty specific on the back. We change those times, so Courtney, Gloria, Jasmine, whoever would do that job, they're written there. If it says midnight and they go to 2 o'clock, that's a no-brainer. These girls, we can do that. It's in my world, when I go to an event, it's easy. If you're having a big party and you know that the caterer's there, that means you've got a permit. That means that the police know where that party is. So you are going to be responsible. I see it all the time. I hear it from young and old all the time. You can't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. You're at these parties. And I guess that's my whole point. I don't want people drinking and driving. What it boils down to. And if you want to, I called it the kegger theory before. It's like when kids were in school. You got to be careful. You don't want the police to know where you're going to be careful if the police know where your party's at. It's not about stopping alcohol. Catering permits, issuing of or withholding of, are not going to solve the alcohol problem. It's going to take a lot more money and a lot more stuff than we're doing to take care of this alcohol problem. This is one faction of just one little area of events that happen every weekend, all week long, at various venues. It gives the caterers the opportunity to be there to monitor those people, to have their insurance policy cover what's going on in that building or house or whatever. That's all it is. Now, the alcohol problem in this town, I wish it would go away, but the catering permits are not going to do it. It's not a watering down of this process. It's actually, I think, a little bit more tightening up of it. In my world, it's issuing more, so I have to be more responsible, or the guy next door has to be more responsible. I'd rather have catering permits than bring your own bottle, because bring your own bottle is the first drink is this big, the second one's this big, and God only knows what the third and fourth and sixth ones are. Plain and simple. It's not about politics. It's not about anything like that. It's about common sense, what people are doing out there, and how to help keep everybody safe. Again, I've gone to these other cities meetings, and they're great. They all come on board. They all get it. They all know what people are doing. It's not about watering down anything or making the caterers rich, or it's about common sense. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and vote on the question that's on the table at this time. Could you read back the motion that we have, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor. The motion was made to go forward with having catering permits approved administratively.
Okay.
Your Honor, just to clarify that, we're just talking about by going ahead, drafting the ordinance for presentation to the council, correct? Okay.
Your Honor, just clarification. I thought we had the ordinance in the previous packet.
Your Honor, we did.
Yes,
had
we
one
did.
in our first one. I don't know how it didn't end up in this one.
Yeah,
we already
but
had a draft ordinance in our first.
This isn't first reading of that
No,
ordinance.
no, it was just a draft.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
No. and it apparently passes.
3 to
Oh,
3.
is it?
3 to 3.
It's
3 to 3.
Fails.
Fail.
I heard 4 on that side, but, do we need a roll call to confirm that, do you think?
Probably be.
Probably wouldn't hurt, okay.
Councilwoman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Todd Smith,
No.
Councilman Baker,
Yes.
Councilman Guard,
No.
and Councilman Heiser,
Yes.
and Mayor.
Mayor votes no. Okay,
So, Your Honor, point of order. Does the mayor vote equal to the council or only to break a tie? Equal to the council.
Your Honor, yeah, he votes just like everybody else.
Okay.
thank you. Agenda item number 10 is ordinance number 12-019, third and final reading, committee terms. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 12-019 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 12-019, an ordinance amending Title II, Administration and Personnel, to revise Chapters 2.44 Planning Commission, 2.48 Construction Board of Appeals, 2.52 Tree Board of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding ordinance number 12-019.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve ordinance 12-019, third and final reading.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded twice. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Your Honor, just a point of order. We'll need a roll call.
Roll call.
I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Christensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Heiser,
Yes.
and Councilmember Guard.
Yes.
Mayor Warpness.
Mayor votes yes. Okay, ordinance number 12-020, third and final reading, establishing airport board. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 12-020 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 12-020, an ordinance amending Title II of the Riverton Municipal Code of the City of Riverton, establishing an airport board, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding ordinance number 12-020.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve ordinance 12-020.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm
Aye.
sorry, we need a roll call vote again.
Yes, Your Honor.
If we had one more, I'd get it.
Councilmember Christensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Heiser,
Yes.
Councilmember Guard,
Yes.
and Mayor Warpness.
Votes yes. Okay, agenda item number 12, public hearing and first reading, ordinance number 12-022, rezone lots 2A and 3A, replat of Tract A, Brentwood Edition. Community Development Director's report.
Yes, Your Honor. The city received a request from the owner to petition to rezone a portion of Tract A of the Brentwood Edition from Mobile Home Park, from the Mobile Home Park zone. This is a piece of property that it is situated near the intersection of Major Avenue and Sunset. It's on West Sunset. The mobile home park that is on the north corner there. This is a piece of property that is directly to the east of that mobile home park. The owner has a potential buyer that is proposing a medical building on the southern portion of the tract and fourplexes on the northern portion. The tract was subdivided previously, and there was confusion with the warranty deeds that followed the division. In order to clean up this area, it was recommended that a replat be done at this time as well. The replat will create two lots which may be rezoned with different designations to meet the needs of the proposed development. There's actually 3 lots that are being formed, but that was just to clear up Lot 7 and a portion of Tract A on the northerly end. That will now become 1 lot, and then there will be 2A and 3A. That is what we're discussing rezoning. Lot 1A will remain as mobile home park as it is right now. We are rezoning this in conjunction with a replat. The replat has not been completely finalized at this time or approved. But in order to speed up the process a little bit, we are going to start with first reading and go through, if it's approved tonight, then we would go on through, and the plat will then come to you prior to the 3rd reading, so that it can be approved. It also has to come to the Planning Commission. It will come to the Planning Commission the first meeting in January, and then it will be reviewed by the council at this 2nd meeting in January. At this council meeting, the rezone ordinance can be adopted on 3rd reading if it's approved in the prior 2 readings. The petitioners are requesting the B residential zoning to accommodate the proposed fourplexes and CO to accommodate the medical building. The master plan does appear to show this area as residential, and since a portion of the tract fronts Sunset, a designation of CO which is compatible with residential would be appropriate for Lot 3A. There are other commercial properties along Sunset, quite a few. The surrounding property owners were notified by certified mail, and a sign was posted on the property. We did receive some comments. Most of them were for the proposed buyer or the owner, from people in the trailer court that were just trying to give an opinion or some information that they knew that the owner or the proposed buyer didn't know about the property, but they didn't have any problems with this rezoning. So it would be our recommendation to approve on this ordinance on first reading.
Okay, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion for the public hearing at this time.
Your Honor, I move that we open public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into public hearing at this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I now declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this issue?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move to close public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 12-022 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 12-022, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Riverton, Wyoming, designating the rezone of Lot 2A and Lot 2B replat of Tract A and Lot 7 of Block 1, Brentwood Edition, City of Riverton, Fremont County, Wyoming, from MHP to Residential B for Lot A and CO Commercial Office for Lot 3A.
Chair would entertain a motion regarding ordinance number 12-022.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve proposed ordinance 12-022 on first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Garden.
for Mrs. Lures, is this piece cut out of the plat to the west or the plat to the east? This portion of ground, was it cut out of the plat that is still lays to the east?
To the east, yes, exactly, and it is a tract of land that was already existing on that Brentwood Edition plat.
So are we going to see in that third reading, we're going to see the full plat suggestion, or is it balance out of the subdivision?
The replat will be only of Tract A, because this was called Tract A in that plat. So this
So
is
what
just
is the
once-
balance of the zoning to the east?
It's,
Is it still mobile home?
it's actually out of the city limits.
It's not in the city limits?
Correct.
So just this piece lies in the city limits
Correct.
of the mobile home park?
Correct. It was part of the Brentwood addition. It's
Thank
Tract
you.
A.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 13, County Plat, Sac Subdivision, Community Development Report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. This property is located within a mile of the Riverton city limits and therefore requires approval of the Riverton City Council. The property is located east of Paradise Valley, northwest of Riverton. The Fremont County Planning Commission reviewed this. The Fremont County Planning Commission reviewed this plat on November 29th of this year and required a few changes. They did ask that the cul-de-sac either be narrowed with a smaller diameter or be moved so the existing water well would not be in the easement. The first plat that we saw, the water well happened to be within the easement of the cul-de-sac. They also asked for the access road and the cul-de-sac to have a name so emergency vehicles would know Lot 1 exists. The utility companies were contacted by Fremont County Planning, and High Plains Power had not responded when the Fremont County Planning Commission met. High Plains Power actually owns a portion of property on this plat, so the Planning Commission did ask to also have them sign the plat. And so the surveyor has placed on the new plat, which you have there, a signature line for High Plains Power to sign on, since they do have actual land in there. No other utility issues were mentioned. The Riverton Planning Commission reviewed the SAC subdivision plat and recommended approval contingent on those changes. And by the time you have this now, all those changes have been made to that plat.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the SAC subdivision.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we approve the subdivision.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 14, the one we've all been waiting for. Allowing chickens in city limits discussion. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, I got this one also.
Okay. Well, Bill's not here. Somebody's got to.
I guess so, we did do quite a bit of research, mostly via the internet and a few phone calls on this. Councilman Smith had recommended for staff to look into an ordinance change that would allow the residents of Riverton to have chickens in their yards. While I don't believe we should change an ordinance just because there are people who are violating the ordinance, I believe the subject still warrants consideration once we did some research. There was one thing that was brought up, that there's an ordinance that does not allow chickens within the city limits, and why were we not enforcing it? In all the times and all the inspections that I've done in the last 4 years, I have never seen a chicken. Everyone that I have talked to that has also done that has never seen a chicken. So the people that must have them are very secretive and very quiet. We have received absolutely no complaints or anyone that has addressed that. Just so you know, if there are out there, then they're keeping them in their houses, I guess. But if there are, this is one more little thing. Okay, if there are some out there and there have never been any complaints and no one even realizes that they're there, might be just another plus if you decide you want to allow chickens. One of the things that I believe why it warrants consideration would be allowing families to be more self-sufficient by providing for their families. I thought that was a good reason. In our research, we have found other benefits to allowing what they call urban or backyard chickens, and of course fresh eggs, nutrient-rich fertilizer, and pest reduction have all been touted in most everything that I looked at on the internet. We've researched many cities in Wyoming and in other states. I did receive quite a bit of information from Portland, Oregon. They started their allowing fowl or poultry in their municipality. They've even gotten to the point of having annual tour de coops, so you can go around and and see other chicken coops. I thought it was pretty interesting. In most states, there are in most of the states that I found, there are places that allow chickens within their city limits with varying degrees of regulations. There are many, of course, that don't also. Many municipalities do not address poultry specifically, and thus it is deemed not to be prohibited. Some of the Wyoming cities that do this include Evanston, Rawlins, Lander, Green River, Douglas, and Buffalo. They're basically just included in their animal ordinance. They don't specifically say they're allowed. They don't prohibit them. And they do that with several other animals. They do have, a lot of those will have ordinances that don't allow any noisy animals and those types of things, which you would assume would not allow roosters and those types of things. Laramie has a specific ordinance allowing, I think they in theirs calls it fowl in this case. They have these following requirements. Enclosure or pen shall be at least 20 feet from the neighbor's residence. The pen shall be kept clean and in good repair with living space of not less than 9 square feet in area and a ceiling height of not less than 2 feet. The animal shall not be allowed to make loud noises and not more than 12 animals over 100 days. So they allow 12, what we would assume are hens. The town of Dayton allows poultry on lots less than 1 acre with the following requirements. Pens to be located on the rear half of the lot and no closer than 70 foot from the front lot line and no closer than 50 foot from any residence. They have to be caged at all times and sanitation to be maintained with food stored in metal or other rodent-proof containers. Owners can be charged with a misdemeanor violation should a nuisance by neglect, unsanitary health conditions, excessive odor, or to allow chickens to cause property damage. Some of the municipalities which specifically prohibit poultry are Gillette, Casper, Rock Springs, Jackson, Lingle, Cheyenne, and of course Riverton. One thing I did find out, I spoke with Robin from the city of Lander once I found out that Lander just specifically does not prohibit chickens. Again, they have an animal ordinance that has other rules and regulations with sanitation and those types of things that are covered. I asked them what their experiences were, and she said they don't have any problems. She did say that she discourages them from having roosters. So there may be some that do have roosters. From the sounds of it, they don't have any complaints. She did tell me that because of the terrible grasshopper problem that Lander has had over the last couple of years, which Lars has actually mentioned to us, they have had more people having chickens in their backyard because chickens love grasshoppers, I found out. And I was told that's a marriage made in heaven because they just, so I think for that reason, she said a lot of Lander people have started raising chickens. And it does say that they do have an appetite for all kinds. You know, it isn't, it's something that if you did decide to do this with certain parameters, anybody who wants to do it, I think, needs to definitely look into the pros and the cons, because there's definitely pros and cons. What we would recommend in our research, if we recommended an ordinance, we'd have certain guidelines, and we would suggest limiting to 3 to 6 chickens, and no roosters in this case. We would say to limit the proximate to the property line rather than to a residence. To me, a person could have a residence and then decide to do an addition on the side where they were supposed to be away from the chicken coop, then the person with the chicken coop would have to move, so to the property line just makes a lot of sense. So we would recommend proximity to the property line of 20 to 30 feet. Again, whatever you might suggest. I also think it would be a good idea to put in there a living space of not less than 9 to 16 square foot per animal. The other thing that I would recommend is that the chickens were not allowed to run at large in the yard. They would need to be contained in some kind of a pen. They can have a coop and in some kind of a pen that they could come out in. And then those pens and runs should be kept in good repair, and proper sanitation must be maintained, and that they shouldn't be used for commercial purposes, so that somebody isn't raising as many chickens as they can and then selling the eggs. It needs to be for personal consumption. Anyway, so at this time our recommendation would be to have an ordinance that allows chickens with some specific regulations that you might come up with. The other thing, at the same time, what I have noticed in these ordinances is that rabbits specifically are also put in this similar type of an ordinance along with it, because again, in our city code it does not allow rabbits, and I do believe there are people within the city limits that do have rabbits and rabbit hutches. But again, it would be under the same types of things, only a certain number, they had to be kept sanitary, had to be kept in hutches, those types of things. So it's just another thought. If you decided you wanted to look into an ordinance for the chickens, I would suggest maybe to allow, or to put rabbits in that same ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. I'd just like to compliment you on the excellent report that you prepared. I learned a lot that I didn't have any idea, and there's a lot that goes into it. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it seems to be they fall into two groups. Ones that are, it's okay, and the others that have been raised with chickens that have very bad memories of chickens, and they don't want nothing to do with them. So there seem to be in those two camps, and so my wife happens to be in the negative camp. I want to remark there for what that's worth. The chair would entertain a motion at this time regarding this issue.
Your Honor, for the sake of discussion, I would make the motion that we simply remove the language that prohibits chickens from the city, as opposed to creating new regulations on them. For the sake of discussion, that would be my motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion at this time?
Your Honor, the reason I made that motion is, like they said with Lander, that just does not prohibit having chickens. Some of the recommendations, I had some questions about, putting numbers on chickens. We had that debate of numbering dogs, how many dogs is acceptable for people to have. And part of the information in the packet, which I didn't know, is that it takes 2 chickens per person to keep a family in eggs. Well, with 6 chickens, then 3 people in the household get eggs, so you're kind of limiting people that have 4 people or 5 people in a household. Property line kind of restrictions there as well. Just looking at my own property, I don't think I have 30 feet from a property line on any of my 4 corners of my house. I'd have to put them in my kitchen, I guess, if I had some. And there's a lot of smaller properties that, I think could maybe have a few chickens that would be restricted by that property line thing. And then I think, we probably need to be careful on the commercial purposes. Yes, we don't want people to, having a poultry farm in town and selling a bunch of, fried chickens out of their home or eggs or things, but I'm not sure we want to restrict people from maybe selling a dozen eggs to the neighbor or taking them to a farmer's market or something like that. So that would be the reason I would say we just lift the language that restricts them currently and kind of use the existing statutes we have on nuisance and noise and odor and those kind of things. So that was my reasoning behind that.
Your Honor.
Any other comments?
Your Honor.
Councilman Gardner.
I would agree with Councilman Smith. I'd like to keep if we're going to do it, it appears that we don't have a lot of problems currently, And if we don't need the restrictions, I wouldn't place them on it. I think it's the same thing as we're all trying to do, is limit those problems. A few other things that come to mind of just common sense. If they're using them in Lander for grasshopper control, then do we have to have somebody chase the grasshoppers into the pens?
Just a thought. We need comments from our weed and pest. I can see.
Just a thought. And knowing something about chickens, I would like to compliment to the staff for their report. I fall in that camp of being raised with chickens, and I'm of the country. I like chickens, but you don't get any eggs from chickens that are less than 100 days old. And so you just have a bunch of dead birds, and they have to be about 9 months old before they start to lay. And so I think a lot of these are good intended rules, but unless we can teach our grasshoppers to go into the pens and a few of those things, I think we should go right back to what Councilman Smith is suggesting, that we just leave it to the common sense, and it appears that we don't have a lot of violations currently. And so until we run into some noise ordinance problems or those things, then we could come back and amend that, but I don't think we'll have that problem. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Yes,
A couple of questions. One statement, there is a rooster over on Sunset. I hear it all the time. He lives over there, someplace. If you go to work at 4 in the morning, 4:30, you hear him. He's pretty close to my house. But one of the other questions, do we have an animal control officer? We do have one, yeah, because now I have seen the police rounding up chickens over by the Ready Mix. There was the chickens were out and the police were over there. And the only reason I know is I had to give the lady a ride because the police were at her house and there was chickens all over. So it was, they were not happy about chasing chickens. So there are quite a few chickens in town. But another question, does it include all zones? All zones. And do we have a recommendation from the Planning Commission? I didn't see that in there. Did we run it by them? No. Can we do that? I don't know. They should have some. If it's in all the zones, I just think, I don't know.
They weren't planning for any chickens.
No, I know, but I thought that's what don't we run those things by the Planning Commission?
Do we run dog ordinances by the Planning Commission?
No. No, okay. I just thought a recommendation. I guess I spoke to, well, they called me, to a couple owners of the chicken farm out here, and that owned it for many years. One for many, many years, the other one for not quite so long, but they live in town now. They're not real happy about chickens. I don't know if I've gotten any calls that were real happy about chickens, so I just, I know people want to add to their income, feed their families, all that. I just kind of feel bad about some other people that were here recently trying to make a living, and we voted them down. So, kind of one of those deals. Lots of people out there wanting to make a living, and yeah, I vote for kids over chickens. I don't know.
Okay, is there any other comments? Councilman Baker.
Your Honor. Well, I thought that the animal ordinance for Laramie, which was included in our packet, offered some significant advantages over our current ordinance for the city. And so contrary to, let's just erase the word chickens from our law, I thought maybe we were going to have an opportunity to actually address an overall improvement in our animal control statutes. So I don't see anything wrong with asking people to provide well for their chickens. I understand the square footage issue, and that may limit somebody with a very small city lot from having enough room to have chickens. And that kind of goes along with what we've got right now with our current zoning, where BGA allows animals, but the other zones don't. And then BGA limits their animals based on the amount of land. And so you could be in BGA, but if you don't have a half an acre, you couldn't have an animal. Couldn't have a cow or a horse. But if you had several acres, then you could have an animal for every half acre. I think that's the way I read it. And so that would, by having a square footage requirement and a setback, property setback, then you could allow chickens up to a certain level. And there you might not need to say 3 chickens or 4 or 6 or 12, but the individual would be limited based on available space. And so that might also temper the activity. On the other hand, I can't disagree with Councilman Guard that most people that would have chickens would probably have enough sense to take care of them. So I just thought that there were some elements of the Laramie statute that looked like maybe they'd be an improvement over what we currently have.
Thank you, Councilman Guard. As you were reading through your report, and the 3 to 6 chickens and no roosters, and 20 to 30 foot setback from the property, and 9 to 16 square foot per chicken, and contained, and yada yada yada, makes a lot of sense to me. To not have any guidelines or any rules is just throwing it out to the good common sense of the citizens, and some of our citizens have really good common sense, and some of our citizens don't have any sense at all. And so it's, that's the rub. And then to suggest that, well, we had the discussion over dogs and animals and whatnot, I'll be quite frank with you, I was disappointed that we weren't prepared to come up with any guideline on the number of animals in our community. And to me, a dog and a cat is in my home, they're part of the family, and we have birthdays and the whole 9 yards. But I don't think that chickens and rabbits fall into that, possibly rabbits, I don't know, but that fall into that category. And so I think we're talking about 2 different obviously species, but I would just hate to just say, yeah, you can have as many chickens as you want, and you can deal with them however you want to, and good luck. I just think that's taking what one gentleman described to me as, if you want chickens, go out in the county. And I think we're just asking for trouble to go that way. We may not have any trouble, I don't know. None of us can foresee the future, but it just it seems to me like people spend a lot of time and money and effort on their personal property, and we have neighbors sometimes that don't take quite as good a care of their property. And I know Sandy spends a lot of time trying to push those edges just on basic kind of stuff without mixing farm animals into the mix. I don't know how the chief feels about it in terms of the enforcement of that side of the equation and everything. But I could almost live with it if we had some restrictions on the animals and whatnot, but I think just to say, no, we don't want any restrictions and you can do whatever you want to, I just can't go that way. But it also seems to me like, I agree with Councilman Guard that we don't want to inject ourselves into people's private property rights any more than what we have to. But, you know, we say, okay, we do the ultimate injection by just disallowing it completely. And so I would prefer not to go that way, but boy, just to do it with no guidelines or no strings attached, I'd feel pretty uncomfortable with that. But at any rate, is there any further discussion?
Your Honor, go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to say, you know, I only put that 20-foot or 30-foot in there just because that was some other things that there are other places that said 15 feet, which, you know, might, you know, get to give someone a little bit more of an ability to do that.
We're getting community gardens around the town, and they're talking about putting more of them. Would it be possible to have a community chicken coop? I don't know.
A loner chicken? Loan out a chicken or two?
I don't know.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Guard.
My whole thought is I hate to have somebody have to break down the law enforcement on something that we really don't have a problem with right now. It would be different if you were standing here and saying, you know, there's a chicken down on Sunset and I have 12 complaints that he's waking me up, and yet we don't have that. And so, and I don't want the chief to have to go out and square foot a chicken coop and see if it's at 9 square feet.
I think Dave would do that.
And somebody would have to get to it. And I think you got to apply some common sense to these rules. You know, I don't know where in Laramie they're getting eggs laid from a bird that's 100 days old, and who's gonna date the chicken? I mean, who's?
No, can I explain that one? Can I explain that to you?
Yeah, take a shot.
Okay, what they're saying is if you have some chicks there, you can have more. Let's say we allowed 5 chickens. It says that you can have 5 chickens, and as long as you got all these little chicks that are less than 100 days old, you can have more than 5. That's what that's trying to say.
That's a better statement.
That makes more sense.
Does that make a little more sense to you?
At about 100 days is when you're going to
But
butcher.
at 100 days, they're considered one of your 5 or 6 or whatever you're allowed.
That makes better sense. I just don't see, if we don't, I would feel totally with the statements if we had some complaints, but we, you know, I don't know even where this came from. If Councilman Smith was just trying to get people inside the ordinances of Riverton, then great. I've had one phone call total, and that was this evening from a very nice lady, and she said she would like to see chickens allowed in the city of Riverton. And so I don't think this is an ordinance that we're going to go out and start robbing the banks. This isn't a real law enforcement backbreaker. And until somebody can prove to me that it isn't just a lot of these animals, and I think if the mayor got a chicken, he'd name it and he'd start to tame it the same way. And so
oh dear.
I think that it's like most anything, that if it's something that you like to do, and I think it's a really good idea to have a clause in there about commercial operation. I think I'm not suggesting that, but I think that to have somebody go out and count the chickens. I've been assigned to go count the chickens, and they don't stand still, and they're not easy to count. And so I just don't think that those are things that we need to do unless we have problems with it. And that's where we went back with the dogs. The chief was quick to point out that we had these ordinances in place, and we've got them today. We have noise ordinances, we've got smell ordinances, we've got complaints from neighbors. We've got all of those ordinances on the books. And so unless somebody just puts 600 chickens in their backyard, I just don't see that happening. I think that it will be and continue to be a fairly quiet operation. if you let your chickens out to eat the grasshoppers in your yard, I wish I had some last summer. And yet the one nice thing about chickens is they come home and roost. And that's a naturally built-in thing. But they're not going to know the difference to go on my property or Councilman Heiser's unless there's a fence there. And so I think there are those neighborly requirements. So I just don't want to waste a lot of city effort in counting the square feet of what they're living in or how good their coops are built. And so I think that has merit, and we would leave that to the police, and if they had a problem with that, they could bring those to us or to Sandy's office, and I think Sandy and Rosie would go right to work on adjusting that and asking for something to be changed. So I just don't think that this is something that we need to set a bunch of parameters to. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any other comments?
Your Honor. Sorry, go. Just, thinking of, Lander as a neighboring city, and they just allow them. That's where I was thinking of starting with, that if we simply were to allow them, we know some people have them. If there's a few others, I don't think we're going to have a rush on lots of chickens, but there may be a few people who want to do that. Start there. The city of Lander says they don't have any problems without the regulations and things. If we run into those, then we need to address those as they come up, like Councilman Guard said. So that was simply my thought, was simply to start with where a neighboring city has not had any problems and see how it works. And if we run into problems, then we can start discussing some of these other regulations.
So
Yes,
Your Honor,
Councilman Christian.
just so I'm clear, so any amount of chickens in any zone within the city limits? No fences.
Okay. That's what
Thank
I'm
you.
hearing.
Okay.
Does this include rabbits now? Is that what we're talking about?
So here's just something else I'm thinking. Well, if we can have any amount of chickens in our yards, or whatever size they may be, so somewhere there's got to be some roosters, or somebody's going to have some big old chicken farm out here, because we got to get those chickens. I don't know where does anybody sell them here anymore?
What?
Co-op and whatnot?
You
Do you
have
get
to-
them at co-op?
You have to order.
Oh, do you? Okay. Paul Hughes.
They come
used to
through the
have-
post office.
I used to buy my birds down to Paul
What
Hughes.
I'm hearing is if it does turn into that kind of a problem, then we'll come back and retweak the code and make those adjustments as necessary, so.
I just don't, having had chickens, I just don't see a lot of people wanting to have that problem. And so the few that do, I think they
Being
ought,
gentle this evening.
the few that do ought to have the opportunity to learn, and those that don't can to not choose to have any.
Your Honor, I guess I have a different impression, because Mike has told me such great stories about his chicken and how it sits up on top of its head. It walks around with him. It's social. It wants to be petted. It's like having another animal. But I don't know. I've never been around chickens, so I'm thinking about it.
Okay, well, you've got a nice, large backyard there. And
Your Honor, wasn't there a lovely lady in town here for many years that had a pet rooster, if I'm not mistaken? It truly was tame. It was
a nice
followed her all over.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Would you read that motion back, please, Gloria?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Smith made the motion to remove the language that prohibits chickens from the City of Riverton ordinance.
Okay. And it's seconded. We've had good discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the mayor, in the interest of unanimity, will vote aye.
No.
And Councilman Christensen voting no.
No chickens.
Okay. Next agenda item is consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda by title, items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. The approval of the minutes, December 4th, 2012, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, December 11th, 2012, special council meeting. Approval of the minutes, December 17th, 2012, finance committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, December 17th, 2012. Approval of the Municipal Court Report for the month of November 2012. Approval of the delinquent fines of deceased defendants, December 2012. Acceptance of the annual audit fiscal year 2011 through 2012.
Okay. No other further discussion items?
Your Honor, it's a recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $238,475.32. Elan credit card in the amount of $2,383.30. Checks written for payroll liabilities for November 30th, 2012 in the amount of $207,646.39 for a total of $448,505.01.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I would, Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve the consent agendas.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Council committee reports and council members roundtable. Councilman Heiser, lead off, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just another reminder, the grants meeting for School District 25 Recreation Board for those wishing to submit for grant funding this year is January 14th. It's a Monday night. It'll be at the School District 25 Administration Building just off Main Street. And we start at 6 p.m. And that'll be your chance to get in and present to the board. You need to have 10 copies of your grant proposal for the members of the board prior to that meeting so that you can pass them out to each of the members, and usually takes just a couple of minutes per person. And the veterans know that if you get there early, you get to leave early, so just send that out with you. We talked to Councilman Smith, led us in prayer in the pre-meeting, and I also want to share his thoughts with thoughts and prayers for those affected in the Newtown, Connecticut tragedy this past week. Horrific incident, and even though it's far away from us, I think any of us that have kids certainly hugged them a little tighter. So just thoughts and prayers for that community as they try and move on from just unimaginable pain and heartache. I also want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Please be safe over the holidays. Don't drink and drive. If you're traveling, please make sure you check the roads. YDOT's done a great job with the webcams. They've got a lot more out there now that you can check the road conditions, and they're very, very good at updating them. So just if you're traveling, take it easy and get there safe and get home safe. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Guard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas also. I appreciate that comment from Councilman Heiser. The tragedy on the East Coast is one that we all feel and try to support. And I have the airport board will not meet this month, and my other committees are not meeting this month. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilman Baker.
Your Honor, we did have an alcohol crisis meeting a week or so ago now that I was able to attend briefly. I had to leave before it was over. We get that report every month, and we all struggle with that. I think the Crisis Center provides the city with some needed benefits, and yet it seems to fall short of everybody's idea of what should be going on. So there's a real struggle there. And the Crisis Center has done a survey. I don't know, has everybody on the council gotten that survey and responded to it? I haven't seen a report on that yet, however, what their findings were from that survey.
Okay. Councilman Smith.
No further reports tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilman Christensen.
No reports.
City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Just a reminder, our first meeting in January will be the 8th, not the 1st. The mayor and I went to the CES dinner on Saturday night, and they gave the city award of the Distinguished Service Award, which is one of their, I believe, their highest.
I believe that is their highest award.
Highest award, and they complimented the city on various aspects. The first was the relationship with the police department. They really commended the police department and their help, and sometimes they have some unruly people up there that they have to deal with, and they said the police department is more than gracious in helping them. They also talked about the recycling, our program for recycling, and then for grant opportunities, how we sponsor their grants and send them through. And so they really gave a lot of kudos to the city, and this is now given to the city, and we'll post it somewhere. I believe we have another one somewhere else, but we'll put that up for the council. Also, I've received a few availabilities from some of you. As the mayor gets ready to assign people to committees, please send your availability in. I think there was an email sent out that Kristen put together of all the committees and when they met. If you can please forward that to myself or the mayor, so we can not assign you to something that you can't attend. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver. Appreciate it. Yes, that was an interesting dinner, and I had the opportunity to remark that I remember Gary Hudson, the individual that started what's now CES. I don't remember what they called it at the time, but it wasn't CES. It's what? Dignity, that's right. And he had a half-time secretary, and that was it. And I was helping Gary carry an old sofa down into an office, and that's basically the way it started out. And now they've got I think Mia was telling me, her husband Pat works for CES, that they have an $11 million budget. And it's just grown into a remarkable program for developmentally disabled individuals and their families and whatnot. And to be able to provide that kind of help to families that have those needs is truly remarkable for our community. It really is. We've got a lot to be proud of there. So, and the award testifies to the support that the county, or not the county, but the city has given to them over the years to make that happen. So I'm very proud to be associated with an organization that can do that. So I too agree with Councilman Heiser's comments regarding the Newtown, Connecticut tragedy. I have a newfound respect for our president. As he was reading through that list of names, I couldn't have got through that name. So it was Mr. Urbikite and I went over to Lander and got with SLIB through the consensus funding and whatnot, and we put our name in the hat for a little bit more funding this year to help. We'd had the South Federal rebuild as part of that funding for the storm sewer, and it looks like we're going to get part of that. And then there's another thing up on Cowboy Lane or something, I don't know, and it just goes on and on, all of these different programs. But things are going well. We're getting ready for a new year, and I wish everyone a Merry Christmas as well. I think we've had a good year, and I'm very proud to be associated with the city of Riverton. So we don't have an executive session this evening, so the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Second.